I was delivering training the other day, and a really nice bunch of people, involving some rough sleeper outreach workers as well. And someone asked a question which admittedly was kind of asked a little bit clumsily, but I kind of got to the bottom of what she was saying. And she was basically talking about people rough sleeping and how they would choose to sleep rough in order to get social housing, or that was the perception of it. And often you get questions in training which kind of, wrong foot me or whatever. And so I kind of, went back and said, okay, well, hang on a minute, what are we talking about here? Because I've certainly never met someone rough sleeping who chooses to kind of sleep rough just to get social housing. Partly because, let's face it, most people know that social housing isn't a given anyway. So I kind of went back and kind of just sort of delved a little bit more into the situation she was asking about. And in effect, what she was really saying is, we've got HMO accommodation available for rough sleepers, and we'll move someone in and they'll basically move out again, back onto the streets, and they'll say it's because they want social housing. And I think there's a lot of potential kind of confusion or kind of clumsiness in how that's been articulated in that situation. Because really, I think what is happening there is that the person rough sleeping feels so unsafe in HMO type accommodation that they basically would rather stay on the streets. And whether or not they get social housing down the line doesn't matter. That night they feel safer on the streets than they do in their own kind of tenancy or whatever, in sort of roguish type HMO type accommodation. So maybe think about a guy called Alfred Adler, psychiatrist, I guess. He was kind of a contemporary of Sigmund Freud. He did some work with Freud, I think. He became maybe more active a little bit after Freud's kind of active mode, so sort of 1930s. I think he wrote his stuff. And in many ways kind of far more like humane than Freud was. And he was actually in many ways ahead of his time with kind of being humane to people and stuff. But I think Adler was kind of even more so. I think he was not a fan of Sigmund Freud's drive theory and that sort of stuff, unconscious drives or whatever it's called. And Adler, a lot of his work is very influential. So words like lifestyle, I'd argue, actually come from Alfred Adler. Because he talks about these styles of life. But one of the things he talks about, which is very interesting from a homelessness point of view, that maybe kind of talks about this question that came in through the training, was that he talks about this concept of private logic. And in the professionalised homelessness sector, partly because we kind of have social work influences, you often hear this term unwise decisions being made, and it comes from social work. It comes from the idea that adults with capacity have a right to make unwise decisions or do things which professionals see as being unwise decisions. So it might be that they choose to stay in an abusive situation or something like that. And I've never liked that terminology. Basically, I always felt it sells the person short and maybe ignores this potential private logic. So private logic is basically the idea that people won't always tell you why they're doing something, but there will be a reason. They won't necessarily articulate it. In some cases, they may not even be that conscious of it themselves, but there is a good reason for everything they do. And so, the situation where someone's choosing to sleep rough or appearing to, it's not because they want to, their life goal is to be a rough sleeper. It's because in the situation it is better for them. They know the streets, they know kind of probably safe places, they know people there who are going to keep them safe, as opposed to being kind of moved into strange accommodation on the other side of the city that kind of has lots of problems there as well. So I guess it's just an interesting idea. It kind of crops up in a number of Adler's books. And I'm sure you can find some stuff on YouTube if you want to know more about it in more detail. But for me, it's just very helpful when we, as professionals, we talk about people. There's a lot of different ways professionals basically, kind of get things wrong quite a lot of the time. Things like multi-agency meetings where the individual's not actually there, that sort of thing. That's kind of a recipe for disaster. But I think Adler's just really helpful in just kind of reminding us that it's just absolutely crucial that we have or we take time to actually understand why people are really doing what they're doing. And not just kind of write it off as unwise decisions or kind of someone not engaging or choosing not to engage or choosing to be difficult, whatever it might be. There will be good reasons for it somewhere, and it effectively you may never know what those reasons are. It's not your right to know, but in some cases, if you show yourself to be trustworthy with people who are homeless, they might actually eventually tell you why they might be up for something or not up for something or whatever. And I guess it's the whole system within the homelessness sector, which is very much driven by kind of performance indicators and stuff these days, key performance indicators and that sort of thing. You can kind of lose all that stuff, and actually as soon as you lose that kind of ability to understand people and kind of listen to them, I think no matter how slick you might be, I don't know that you're really going to solve homelessness, in my opinion. But again, appreciate we're going to get some pushback on that probably. But yeah, interested to hear what you think about these kind of videos I'm doing at the moment around, you know, kind of non-housing law stuff. I guess I'm just kind of been thinking about stuff recently, which just helps me make sense of it all. And Adler certainly does. As I say, lots of other stuff he did, which was really cool as well. I think there was basically an evolution between Freud, Adler, and then the transactional analysis kind of school, which is fantastic. I'm not sure if I'm clever enough to do kind of videos about that really, but yeah, transactional analysis I think kind of leads on from Adler's work and is a very powerful tool for working with people effectively and kind of yeah, just kind of, I don't know, cutting through a lot of the stuff that you see in the sector. Lots of games being played, so to speak, to use the word of to use the wording of transactional analysis. But again, I'm just throwing this stuff out there just to see if it kind of lands and see if people are interested in it and see if it helps people just kind of make sense of the sector and kind of, you know, what their role is in it really.